So hi, I'm Alicia. So I work at Shorts within our Genius team, and that's where we do management accounts, FD services, and software projects mainly around Xero. So we'll then, after I've done my talk, we'll have Matt then, who's from our Radius team. We'll let him introduce himself as we go through. Kerry, who's going to be from Shakespeare Martineau, and then Martin Dean, who's going to be talking about corporate finance and selling your business. So jump straight in then. So what is management information? So put simply then, it's a collection of data that provides critical business information to aid with business decisions. So from a financial perspective then, the reports that we're typically going to expect to see are things like your profit and loss, your balance sheet, your budget, and your cash flow forecasts. But management information is about taking that financial data that one step further. So starting to think about what can we actually do with our financial data that's going to give us more information. So consider things like reports to track your R&D costs, return on investment, stock levels, turnover by salesperson, or divisional reporting. So instead of looking at a profit and loss for the company as a whole, start to think about, can we actually run a profit and loss by product, by service, by location, whatever it is that kind of relates to your business. Now, when we're thinking of management information, the best management information is actually a more well-rounded picture of what's going on with your business. Now, the financial side is just one element of that. You've typically got systems around your financial systems that actually will give a more broad range of what's going on in your company. So start to bring things in like conversion rates, customer satisfaction, number of website visitors, capacity levels, and project pipeline. So why do we actually need this information? So from an internal perspective then, first of all, it's performance management. So how well is the business actually performing, or how well are different areas within the business performing? So are there areas that we could pay more attention to that aren't doing as well as what they could be? Are there other areas that are actually thriving, and can we replicate that to other areas within our business? Next is setting goals. So having goals and targets is really important because it will focus you on a particular element within your business. Bringing that into your management information means that you are more likely to achieve those goals. Next is your budgets. So budgets are really important, but having them set at the beginning of a year and then not revisiting them isn't going to be much use to anyone. So it's a case of bring those into your management information. Part of that is looking at controlling and maintaining your costs. So then actually by looking at actual versus budget, you can then take that variance and see if there's anything that you can do with that throughout the year rather than just waiting to year end when it's too late. Next is cash flow forecasting. So cash is more important than ever at the moment. And being able to actually forecast where we're expecting cash to be over the next few months or years is really important because it's going to allow us to actually see, is there an area where we're going to start to fall short? Is there an area where we're going to need that little bit more support? And that's going to then allow us to have time and the opportunity to actually do something about that. But if we flip that round, if we've actually got cash where we could be investing, or we could start to look at perhaps investing in new equipment, getting new staff in, what is that actually going to do to our cash? We can then start to look at what-if scenarios. So do we actually have the support to be able to support the outflow of that cash initially? What is the inflow of that going to look like later in the business? So we're making sure that we're making the right decisions. And then finally, support decision making, which is what all this leads to. So it's making sure that you can sleep well at night, knowing that you're making the right decisions for your business. From an external perspective then, if you've got funding coming in to your business, you're working with banks, they're likely to need management information. If you're looking to sell or you need a valuation, again, it's going to instill confidence if you've got this management information and they're going to need to see it. And then finally, compliance purposes, so your VAT year end, for example. So where do you actually start then? So to begin with, think about the information that you've actually got in your business and think about what is actually needed and what is nice to have. And that's not just in your finance system, that's all your systems. So what do we absolutely need to run our business, and what, if we had it, we could actually start to make different decisions. Now, to begin with, think on your actual set of accounts then, so looking at the financial side, think about the setup. Is that actually set up to give you the information that you need? So a very basic way to start then is to consider your chart of accounts. So is that set up to give us some of that information from that list that we've just wrote? Now, the best chart of accounts are always concise, so they're not pages and pages long, but it's still going to give you that information that you need. They're scalable, so they're going to grow with your business. They're flexible, so if we decide to diversify, we've got that option in our chart of accounts. And they're easy to understand, because it's not always going to be finance people with finance training that are looking at these. Next, we've got our chart of accounts. We now need to think about how we're going to split this up vertically. So is there a way we can start running profit and losses, for example, by different streams? So location, regions, type, salesperson, whatever it is that relates to your business, now start to think about how we can chop that chart of accounts up to get us even more information. Consider additional information you could bring in, so KPIs, targets, trends, but also anything outside of your finance system. So if you've got a CRM system, for example, can we start to bring that information into your management information packs to mean that you're actually still giving that well-rounded picture? Now, making sure that your management information is up to date is vital, because if you're doing all this fantastic information, that's great, but you're going to be making a decision on something that's a lot older, so it could be 6 months older if you're not up to date. So make sure that that information is up to date, otherwise you could be making the wrong decisions if the information is out of date. So can I have a quick show of hands, just out of curiosity? If you could run a P&L and balance sheet today, who would be confident that it would be completely up to date to the end of December? It's not a bad number, actually. Which is brilliant then. So now think about those that actually it's not up to date, or perhaps you don't know if it's up to date, or perhaps it is up to date but the process feels really painful. So why is that actually happening? So consider the process and consider mapping that out then, to have a look at, well, what are the steps we're taking to actually get this information? And if the reason that we're late is because we're missing steps, because it's taking a long time, we've got duplication, then when you map it out, that's going to become apparent as to where you can actually start to make it more efficient. And there could also be potentially controls that you're missing. Perhaps it's not as controlled as it should be in different areas, or you've got different people involved that perhaps don't need to be. Map that process out, and then you'll start to spot where actually the process could be a lot simpler and a lot more efficient. And then finally, do you have backing information? So a lot of accounting systems now will allow you to add electronic documents. So make sure that if you have got that facility, you're utilising that, because having all that information in one place is really valuable. And it means that when you're coming for compliance purposes, it's all sat there, you're not wasting your time trying to find documents from a year ago. But also if you're making these business decisions, you've got that information available to you straight away. So what does this information actually look like? So to begin with, consider who needs what information. Now, management information packs aren't just one pack. It's not one massive pack full of as much data as you can imagine. Although that might look very impressive, it's actually going to start to cloud what's actually going on, and you're not getting the right people seeing the right information. So consider who needs what information. Then consider the presenting format. So if you're going to a department head, for example, they're going to want to see more information about just their department. They're going to want to see the details. But actually, if you're going to a board, they want to see an overview. They're more likely to see a dashboard. So consider the presenting format for the different people who need that information. Now, if you've got no management information, a good starting point is something as simple as Excel, for example. It's a good starting point if you haven't had anything. If you start to grow, we wouldn't recommend it, because then usually there's a lot of human intervention and they're not as efficient, but it's certainly a great starting point. If you're using account software, so this is Xero, for example, you can, in a lot of account software, you can tailor reports, you can build some reports. Again, it's going to be around financial if you're looking at your account system, but it's a good starting point, again, to get that data out of your system. Next, we've got third-party reporting software. So this is something called Fathom, and for after this session as well, I can send some example management accounts packs from Fathom, which is what we use. So this is a piece of software that will connect to your accounting software. From here, you can build out dashboards, you can build out reports, and you can bring in financial and non-financial KPIs, for example. So you can start to go that a little bit further. And then finally, if you're looking at a dashboard, you've got something like Power BI that you could then start to build. So these are ideal for things like the board reports then. Now, something like Power BI as well will start to bring in data from different sources. So if you've got multiple systems, you can then start to consider, well, can we actually bring this into the one system and kind of have a single source of truth? So finally then, make sure you're regularly reviewing these reports and tailoring them, because none of this information is very useful if you're not looking at it. But also, what it looks like at the beginning of a year might be very different to what it looks like at the end of a year, because it depends on your business journey and where actually you're focusing your efforts throughout that period. So thank you very much. I will now hand over to Matt.